The dog came through the emergency doors like he had been fighting the whole world and had finally run out of places to run. 90 pounds of Belgian Malinois hit the lobby floor hard enough to slide the rubber mat halfway across the tile. His claws scraped. His broken leash dragged behind him. A line of dark blood marked the path from the entrance to the reception desk. Then the screaming started. A woman holding a cat carrier fell backward into the chairs. A man with a terrier scooped the dog into his arms and ran for the exit. The receptionist shoved herself away from the counter so fast her chair struck the wall. 2 vet techs sprinted down the treatment hallway and slammed the swinging door behind them. The Malinois turned on the sound. His ears flattened. His teeth flashed. Foam hung at the edges of his mouth. His eyes were bright and terrified and furious in the way only a trained animal can be when pain has turned the world into a threat. Behind him, a man in a torn field jacket staggered through the doors. "Everyone back!" he shouted. "Do not approach him." Dr. Malcolm Say stepped into the lobby from the administrative corridor, holding a tablet, his face tight with irritation. "Elara," he said sharply, "stay where you are." But Elara Venn had already set down the syringe tray. She was 32 years old, a veterinary nurse, and the kind of woman people forgot 5 minutes after meeting her. Dark hair pinned low, navy scrubs, plain shoes, calm face. Nothing about her looked dramatic. That was why everyone noticed when she walked straight toward the dog. The Malinois saw her. His body lowered, his shoulders bunched. A warning growl rolled through the lobby. Dr. Say's voice cracked across the room. "Elara, that is a military working dog. You are not qualified to handle him." She did not look back. The dog took 1 step toward her. Elara stopped 6 feet away, turned her body slightly sideways, and lowered 1 hand. Then she spoke 3 words under her breath. The man in the torn jacket went still. The dog froze. Not because she was loud, not because she commanded him. Because he recognized something, his ears came forward. The growl broke into a confused breath. Elara crouched slowly and placed her palm flat against the floor. The Malinois stared at her for 1 long second. Then he walked forward, lowered his head, and pressed his forehead into her hand. The entire lobby went silent. The man in the torn jacket whispered, "How do you know that command?" Elara looked at the dog's rear leg, the one he had been hiding from everyone else. "I know pain," she said quietly, "and he's been carrying it for a long time. If this story already has you hooked, stay with it until the end. And if it moves you, hit like and drop a comment with the city you're watching from." Harborline Animal Emergency sat near the edge of Greyhaven, Washington, 3 blocks from the military port and 2 blocks from a row of warehouses that smelled like rain, diesel and salt. The clinic looked better from the street than it did from the inside. The lobby had been remodeled with donor money. The treatment rooms had not. The website showed bright photos, smiling staff, and phrases like advanced urgent care and compassionate emergency medicine. The reality was less polished. The ultrasound machine froze if the cable was moved too far to the left. The oxygen cage in Treatment Bay 2 whined when it ran for more than 20 minutes. The back door lock stuck during cold weather. The crash cart was always missing something until Elara checked it. She checked it every morning. No one asked her to. No one thanked her either. That was fine. Gratitude had never been the point. Elara had worked at Harborline for 19 months. Before that, her file said she had worked at a mixed animal clinic in Spokane. Before that, the file became vague. 3 years of contract medical support. No details. No references anyone at Harborline had bothered to. Call. Dr. Malcolm Say had once called her background unremarkable but adequate. He had said it while approving her hire. Elara had heard worse. Saye was the medical director at Harbour Line and treated the title like armour. He was in his 50s, silver-haired, well-spoken, and very aware of how he looked when he walked through a room. He liked clients with money. He liked donors. He liked military contracts even more. He did not like being corrected, especially not by nurses. That morning had already placed Elara on his wrong side. A Labrador named Poppy had come in weak, pale, and quiet. Her owner said she had skipped breakfast. The intake doctor had marked her as stable. Elara had taken one look at the gums, the abdomen, the shallow breath, and moved the dog higher on the triage. Bored, Saye had confronted her at the nursing station. You do not change triage priority without a doctor's approval, he said. She's bleeding internally. You don't know that. I know enough. To get imaging before she crashes. 2 interns had gone silent. A technician had pretended to restock syringes. Everyone knew the tone. Everyone knew Saye would punish the challenge, not the mistake. Poppy was in surgery 40 minutes later. The surgeon found a ruptured splenic mass. Had they waited, she would have died. Saye did not mention it again. Instead, at 10:37 a.m., he called Elara into the storage room he used as an office when he wanted conversations to feel unofficial. Your instincts are good, he said. That was how men like him started warnings. A compliment first. Then the blade. But your boundaries are poor. Elara stood across from him, hands loose at her sides. Poppy would be dead if I had respected thee. Boundary, Saye's expression hardened. That is exactly the attitude I am talking about. She did not answer. I'm placing a note in your file, he said. Any further overreach will result in suspension. A scream cut through the wall before he could finish. Then came the crash. By the time Elara reached the lobby, Bishop had already overturned the small table near the water station, snapped at the air near a young technician, and driven 3 clients toward the exit. The dog moved like a weapon with a body wrapped around it, but pain had a language. Elara saw it before anyone else did. The left rear foot landed half a beat late. The pelvis shifted to compensate. The shoulder wound was fresh, but the limp was not. The dog was too strong for weakness to show unless he had been hiding it for months. The handler tried to command him. Bishop. Down the... Dog flinched at the voice. That was worse than disobedience. The handler saw it too. His mouth tightened as if something inside him had cracked. Elara remembered that look. Handlers blamed themselves before they blamed the system. Dogs did not wake up broken. They were usually broken slowly while loyal people were told everything was fine. She approached. Saye ordered her back. She ignored him. Then came the 3 words. They were not magic. They were a field settle phrase used in a small joint recovery program years ago, a phrase meant for injured dogs who were in too much pain to respond to standard commands. It was never supposed to be used in civilian clinics. It was never written in public manuals. It should not have worked on Bishop unless he had been trained through that network, but it did work. That was when Elara knew Bishop was not just a patient. He was evidence. The handler stood beside the wrecked reception desk. Breathing hard, his name, he said, was Eli Ward, former Marine. Bishop's handler for 5 years, 3 deployments, 2 blast incidents, 1 retirement packet that described Bishop as medically stable and behaviorally sound. He was cleared 6 months ago, Ward said, for retirement evaluation. Northline Defence Veterinary Services signed off on everything. Elara's hand remained on Bishop's neck. Northline, the name did not show on her face. She had trained that out of herself. Saye moved closer, now trying to reclaim the room. Mr. Ward, the dog is obviously dangerous. We'll sedate him, perform a standard exam, and discuss behavioral options. Behavioral options? Ward repeated. Saye's voice became smooth. In some cases, retired military dogs suffer from severe adjustment issues. Elara looked at Bishop. The dog leaned harder into her hand. "This isn't adjustment," she said. Saye turned. "Enough." She looked at him then. He flinched when his left hip loaded. He's shifting weight off the rear. His lumbar line is rigid. His shoulder wound is new, but his compensation pattern is old. Sayer smiled without warmth. "And you saw all that while he was destroying my lobby?" "Yes." That answer landed badly. Sayer did not like direct competence. It left no soft place for him to press. Ward stepped toward Elara. "What do you need?"
"Radiographs," she said. "Pelvis."
"Lumbar spine, shoulder, then blood work?" "No full sedation unless he becomes unsafe." Sayer laughed once. "She's not making that decision." Ward's eyes stayed on Elara. She calmed him. "She got lucky," Saye said. Elara did not react. She had heard that sentence in deserts, field hospitals, kennels, and review boards. Luck was what people called a skill when they did not want to admit they had missed something. Tsubesh
Followed her into radiology. That
changed the room more than any argument could.
have the dog who had.
Refused his handler, ignored the doctor. And terrified, the lobby walked beside Elara as though she were the only fixed point in the building. The first image took 17 minutes. Bishop did not like the table. He tolerated it because Elara's hand stayed on his collar and her voice stayed low. Priya, the junior tech, stood behind the console with wide eyes and tried not to stare. When the radiograph appeared, no one spoke. The shoulder cut was shallow. The lumbar spine was not. There was severe narrowing at the lumbosacral junction, irregular bony remodeling around the pelvis, and old trauma near the left hip. Not a clean break, not a dramatic fracture. Something worse for a working dog. Chronic nerve pain, progressive, easy to deny if you wanted the paperwork to be clean. Elara leaned closer. "Zoom there." Priya did. Ward stared at the screen. His face went empty. "How long?" he asked. Elara hated that question because it was almost never kind. "Not days," she said. "Months?" "Yes, before retirement." She did not answer. Ward understood anyway. He put one hand against the wall. "They told me he was fine." Sayer stepped in quickly. "Radiographic interpretation can vary. Northline is a respected military contractor," Elara said. "Then they should have respected the dog enough to look at him." Sayer turned on her. "You are suspended from clinical authority, effective immediately." Priya looked down. Ward turned. "Doctor, she just found what 3 evaluations missed. She has exceeded her role repeatedly today. My dog is standing because of her. Your dog is a liability in my hospital." Say snapped. The word changed. Bishop, liability. Not because he understood the meaning, but because the sound of Say's voice sharpened. The dog rose between Elara
And the doctor. A low warning moved through his chest. Saye
stepped back before he could stop himself. Elara placed 2 fingers at Bishop's collar. "Easy, Bishop." Stopped. Ward stared. He had seen Bishop obey thousands of commands in his
life, but this was different. This was not obedience.
This was trust. Before Saye could speak again, the receptionist appeared in the doorway, pale and stiff. "Dr. Saye." "What?" "There are people in the lobby."
Military police. "And a federal agent." Saye's expression shifted. "For Mr. Ward."
The receptionist swallowed. "No, for her." Everyone looked at Elara. They asked for Elara Venn by name. The lobby was still damaged when Elara walked back in. Broken plastic from the brochure stand had been swept into a corner. A smear of blood remained near the entrance. One chair lay on its side. Clients had been moved into exam rooms or out of the building. 2 people stood near the reception desk. One was a woman in a dark suit, late 40s, with a federal badge clipped at her belt and eyes that missed very little. The other was a military police captain in uniform, face set, hands folded in front of him. Dr. Sayer followed Elara into the lobby like a man trying to stand close enough to power that it might recognize him. "I am Dr. Malcolm Sayer, medical director," he said. "Whatever this matter concerns, you can address it through me." The woman looked past him. "Elara Venn?" Yes, the woman opened her credential. "Wallet. Special Agent Naomi Rusk, Department
of Defense Inspector General." The receptionist's eyes widened. The military captain nodded once. "Captain Aaron Ivers."
"Joint Base Callum." Sayer cleared his throat. "Is there an issue with the animal?" Rusk ignored him. "Is Bishop stable?" "For now," Elara said. "You examined him?"
"Yes. What did you find?"
Elara glanced toward the treatment hallway. Chronic lumbosacral disease, old pelvic trauma, likely nerve compression. His retirement clearance was inaccurate. Captain Ivers lowered his eyes for 1 second. Not surprise, confirmation. Rusk removed a folded document from her jacket and placed it on the counter. "This is a federal preservation order. All records, imaging, communication logs, treatment notes, security footage, and staff observations related to Bishop are now protected. Nothing is to be altered, deleted, forwarded, summarized, or discussed with Northline Defense Veterinary. Services without authorization." Sesh reached for the paper. His confidence lasted until the third
line, then it began to drain. "Agent Rusk," he said carefully.
"I assure you this facility is fully cooperative." "Good," Rusk said. "Then you won't object to preserving your outgoing call records as well?" Sayer looked up. That was the first. Crack, Elara saw it. So did Rusk. They used consultation room 2 because it had a door that closed properly. Elara stood near the wall-mounted monitor. Rusk sat at the table. Captain Ivers remained by the door. For a moment no one spoke. Then Rusk said, "You recognized the handling phrase." Elara said nothing. "You recognized Northline." Again, nothing. Rusk opened a folder. "Elara Venn is your current legal name. The complaint filed 4 years ago was submitted under Chief Veterinary Trauma Specialist, Elara Venn. Joint Working Dog Recovery Unit." Captain Ivers looked at her differently now, not with suspicion. With recognition arriving late, Rusk continued, "You reported falsified evaluation records on injured military working dogs. You alleged that dogs were being cleared for retirement, redeployment, or transfer without proper imaging. You also alleged that medical contraindications were removed from final reports." Elara looked at the hand sanitizer bottle on the table. It was
empty. The label was peeling. "Yes,"
she said. "The complaint was closed." "Yes." "You resigned 6 months later." "I was made professionally useless 6 months later," Elara said. "Resigning was just paperwork." Ivers shifted slightly. Rusk did not. "Do you still have copies?" Elara looked at her. "The question was simple." "These..."
Answer was not. "I kept what I
was legally allowed to keep. That is a careful..."
Answer. "It is a careful situation." Rusk
almost smiled. Then her phone buzzed. She checked it. The room
changed. "What happened?"
Elara asked. Rusk looked at Ivers, then back at her. "Northline received an anonymous alert 10 minutes ago that Bishop is being treated here." Elara turned toward the closed door. "No one was supposed to contact them," Ivers said. Rusk stood. "Someone did." Outside the room, Bishop began to growl. Not wild,
not panicked. Warning. Elara was out the door before either agent stopped her. The hallway was empty except for Bishop at the treatment entrance.
Ward stood beside him, one hand hovering near the leash, not touching it. The dog's head was fixed toward the administrative corridor. At the far end, Dr. Sayer stood with his phone in his hand. He lowered it slowly. Rusk stepped out behind.
"Elara, doctor," she said.
Sayer put the phone in his pocket. "I was contacting
our legal team on your personal phone."
"I am entitled to counsel." "You called Northline's regional director. The
colour changed in his face. Just slightly, but enough. Elara looked at the
ceiling camera above the hallway. Rusk
followed her gaze. Does that record audio?
Rusk asked. Priya, who had appeared behind the treatment door, answered quietly. No, but it records video, Rusk nodded. Preserve it. Sayed's jaw tightened. This is absurd, he said. A dangerous dog enters my hospital. A nurse with a questionable background takes control. Now federal agents are accusing me of misconduct for making a phone call. Elara said, Who told you my background was questionable? The hallway went still. Sayed did not answer quickly enough. Rusk's eyes narrowed. Elara took one step toward him. You used that phrase like you had been given it, she said. By who? Sayed looked at Agent Rusk. I want legal counsel present. That's probably wise, Rusk said. Bishop growled again. This time, not at Sayed, at the front door, a black sedan had pulled into the lot. Two men got out. One wore a suit. The other wore a military uniform with no visible name tape under his open coat. Captain Ivers saw him through the glass and went rigid. Rusk looked at him.
Who is it?
Ivers's voice dropped. Colonel Adrian Bell. Elara did not move, but something in her face changed. Ward noticed. Who is that? Elara watched the colonel approach the clinic doors. The man who signed my complaint closed. Colonel Adrian Bell entered Harbour Line as if the building belonged to him. He was tall, broad, and close to 60, with iron-grey hair and the kind of posture that came from decades of being obeyed before finishing a sentence. His uniform was clean.
His face was controlled.
He did not look surprised to see federal agents. That made him more dangerous, not less. The man beside him introduced himself as Lionel Graves, counsel for Northline Defence Veterinary Services. Dr. Sayed immediately stepped toward them like a
drowning man recognizing a boat. Colonel Bell, he
said. Bell did not look at him. First, he looked at Bishop. The dog stood beside Elara, wounded, shoulder cleaned, but not bandaged yet, eyes fixed on the colonel. Bell's expression remained neutral. Mr. Ward, he said.
I understand there has been an incident. Ward's face hardened.
There has been an injury. One your people missed. Bell turned to Agent Rusk. Special agent. This facility is not cleared for the handling of restricted military veterinary files, Rusk said. The dog is retired. His records remain sensitive. His pain is not classified. For the first time, Bell looked at Elara. Elara Venn, he said. She held his gaze. Or are we using the old name today? The hallway went quiet. Rusk stepped slightly forward. Bell smiled, but not enough to be accused of it. I remember your complaint, he said. Energetic, poorly supported.
Emotionally driven, Elara's voice stayed level. You
closed it 11 days after I filed.
It because it lacked merit, because
it had names. Bell's face did not change. Say looked between them, beginning to understand that he was not at the center of the room anymore. Graves, the Northline attorney, inserted himself smoothly. Before this becomes theatrical, I need to state that Northline categorically denies any suggestion of negligence. Bishop was evaluated under standard protocol and cleared according to the evidence available at the time. Elara said, Then you won't object to releasing the raw imaging from that evaluation. Graves paused. Bell did not. There was no imaging. Ward turned slowly. What? Bell looked at him with controlled sympathy. Retirement clearances do not require full spinal imaging unless indicated by examination. Ward's voice dropped. He was favoring the leg, not at the evaluation. Elara looked at Bell. That is
false. You were not there. No, but
the dog was. Bell's eyes narrowed, crouched beside Bishop and touched the calloused pressure points along his right hip. then the guarded line of muscle beside his lumbar spine. This is not a 6-day compensation pattern.
It is not 6 weeks.
He has been offloading the left side for months. Any examiner who watched him move would have seen it. Bell said, "Animals can be unpredictable." "Yes," Elara said.
Paperwork is usually more predictable.
"That is why people prefer it." Ward stared at Bishop. His face was doing something difficult, the kind of grief that had not yet found room to become anger. "Why would they miss it?" he asked. No one answered. Then Elara said, "Because finding it would have changed his value." Bell's head turned. Rusk watched him carefully. "What does that mean?" Ward asked. Elara did not take her eyes off Bell. "It means Bishop was worth more on paper if he was sound." Graves stepped in.
That is an outrageous implication. No, Elara said.
"It is a documented pattern." Bell's face remained still, but the tendon in his jaw moved once. Rusk noticed. Captain Ivers noticed. Ward noticed last, but when he did, something inside him shifted permanently. Agent Rusk moved the conversation into exam room 4 because the lobby had too many eyes. Bell objected. Graves objected formally. Saye objected without understanding why. None of it changed the outcome. Bishop was placed in Treatment Bay 1 with Elara, Priya, and Ward. Captain Ivers stood outside the bay. The Federal Preservation Order remained on the reception counter like a loaded weapon. Elara started Bishop's pain protocol herself. Saye tried to stop her. Rusk looked at him and said, "Doctor, unless you are prepared to explain why you are delaying pain management for a protected evidence animal—"
"Step out." He stepped out. Priya drew the blood work.
Elara cleaned the shoulder wound. Bishop tolerated all of it while watching Ward from across the
room. Ward did not try to touch him. That restraint mattered, Elara.
"Saw it. He doesn't hate you," she said. Quietly, Ward looked at
her. "He came at me. He came at the pain."
"You were closest," Ward swallowed. "I should have known. You knew something was wrong. I believed them when they said behavioral. You were supposed to be able to believe them." That landed harder than comfort would have. Ward looked away. In exam room 4, voices rose. Bell's voice was controlled. Graves's was legal. Rusk's was precise. Saye's had become defensive. Elara heard enough through the wall to
understand the shape of it. North line.
Wanted Bishop transferred immediately to a contracted facility. Rusk refused. Bell argued. Jurisdiction? Rusk said the dog was evidence, or Bell said the dog was government property. Ward stepped out of the bay before Elara could stop him. "He is not property," Ward said from the doorway. Everyone turned. Ward's face was pale, but his voice was steady. "He is retired. His adoption paperwork is signed. He lives in my house. He sleeps beside my daughter's door when it rains. He is not your asset anymore." Bell's expression softened in a way that almost looked human. "Mr. Ward."
"I understand your attachment." Ward's voice sharpened. "No, you don't." Silence. Ward stepped fully into the exam room. "You told me he was fine."
"You told me his aggression was retirement stress. You told me I was mishandling him." Bell's eyes flicked once toward Graves. Ward saw it. "That was—"
"Enough. You knew," he said. Bell did not answer. "You knew there was something wrong with him," Graves said.
"My client will not respond to emotional accusations." Ward looked at him. "Then respond to the X-rays." Rusk placed a tablet on the table. Images filled the screen. Bell did not look surprised enough. That was the problem. Elara stood in the doorway behind Ward. One hand still gloved, Bishop's blood faint on her sleeve. Bell looked past Ward to her. "You always did mistake partial information for truth," he said. Elara replied, "No, I mistook truth for something the system cared about." The room went quiet. Then Rusk's phone rang. She listened for 6 seconds. Her expression changed. "What is it?" Ivers asked. Rusk looked at Elara. Northline's records archive just initiated a bulk deletion protocol. Graves immediately stood. I have no knowledge of that. Bell did not move. Elara looked at
him. You came here to buy time, she said. Bell's
face stayed calm, but his eyes had already
answered. The federal team moved fast. Rusk called for a digital hold.
Ivers contacted the base legal office. Another agent arrived with a sealed laptop and a portable evidence scanner. The clinic's ordinary noise collapsed into the quiet urgency of a place that had become part of something larger than itself. Clients were rescheduled.
Non-critical cases were transferred.
The front door was locked harbour line. Animal Emergency became a federal evidence site by 2:15. PM say he hated it. He stood near reception, making short calls to people who either did not answer or told him to stop calling. His authority had nowhere to land. His staff avoided his eyes. Priya walked past him twice without asking permission for anything. That seemed to bother him more than the agents. Elara stayed with Bishop. The pain medication began to work. His breathing slowed. His eyes softened. His head lowered onto the blanket, but he did not sleep.
Not fully.
Dogs trained to survive rarely surrendered that quickly. Ward sat on the floor across from him. For almost an hour, he said nothing. Then he asked, "How many?" Elara did not pretend not to understand. "I don't know." "How many dogs?" She looked through the glass toward the exam room, where agents were now reviewing copies of Northline correspondence. 4 years ago, I identified 12 with clear discrepancies. Ward's hand tightened. 12, yes. And nobody listened? One person did. What happened to them? Elara looked back at Bishop. They died before the hearing. Ward went still. Elara continued. Officially, it was a vehicle accident. Unofficially?
I learned not to say things I could not prove. Ward stared at her. You kept
proof, she did not answer. Bishop opened one eye. Elara placed her hand on the blanket near his paw. I kept enough to know I wasn't wrong, she said. At 3:08 p.m., the first forged document appeared. It came through Harbour Line's own system. An internal incident note, time-stamped 11:02 a.m., stated that Elara had approached Bishop against medical direction, agitated the dog, and performed unauthorized restraint that increased risk to staff and clients. It also stated Dr. Saye had ordered immediate sedation but was prevented from acting by interference from non-medical federal personnel. Priya
found it by accident while uploading Bishop's
blood work. She printed it without touching anything else and walked
straight to Agent Rusk. Elara didn't write.
This, Priya said. Rusk looked at the note. Who did? Priya swallowed. It says Dr. Saye. Saye denied it immediately. I entered no such
note. Rusk looked at the audit log. The note had been
created under Saye's credentials from the administrative office computer. At 11:02 a.m., Saye had been in radiology, on camera. The administrative office at that exact minute had been empty, or it should have been. Elara looked at the security footage. The camera did not capture the desk directly, but it captured the hallway outside. At 10:59 a.m., a man in a grey delivery jacket entered the administrative corridor, carrying a clipboard. He left 4 minutes later without the clipboard. The
receptionist covered her mouth. That's
not one of our delivery people, Rusk
froze the frame. The man's face was turned just enough. Captain Ivers leaned closer. I know him, he said. Rusk looked up. Name?
Dale Mercer, Civilian Records Liaison.
Northline Access Coordinator. Graves stopped speaking. Bells stood very still. Saye looked genuinely frightened for the first time. That mattered to Elara. Guilt and fear did not always travel together.
Saye was corrupt. In the small ways men become corrupt, when power rewards convenience. But this fear was larger than exposure. This was a man realizing the people he had called for help had put him inside the blast radius. Rusk's voice was flat. "Where is Mercer now?" Ivers checked his phone.
Not answering. Elara looked at the forged.
"No, the purpose was not just to discredit me," she said. Rusk turned. "It was to create a medical justification for transferring." "Bishop!" Ward looked up sharply. Elara pointed to the second page. "The wow note says he became more unstable after my contact. If Northline claims this facility mishandled him, they can request emergency removal to a contracted behavioral unit," Bell said. "That is speculation." Elara looked at him. "Then why did the transfer request arrive 3 minutes ago?" Everyone turned toward the printer. New document was sliding into the tray. Emergency behavioral custody. Transfer. Requested by Northline Defense Veterinary. Services. Authorized by Colonel Adrian Bell. Ward crossed. "The room's so fast, Ivers put a hand out to stop him. You are not taking him," Ward said. Bell's face hardened. "You need to be careful, Mr. Ward." "No," Ward said. "I needed to be careful when I trusted you." The room went silent. Rusk picked up the transfer request and read it once. Then she looked at Bell. "You authorized this while standing in a federal preservation site?"
Bell said, "The animal poses an ongoing risk. The animal is sedated and stable. He attacked civilians. He entered in untreated pain after your contractor cleared him." Bell's jaw
tightened. Graves stepped forward. "Colonel Bell will not answer further questions." Rusk nodded. "That is his right." Then she turned to Ivers. "Captain, detain Colonel Bell as a material witness pending review of obstruction concerns." The room changed instantly. Bell's face finally broke. "Not much, just enough to show the anger under the
uniform. You have no authority to detain me," Rusk said.
"I have a forged medical record, a deletion protocol, an unauthorized transfer request, and a protected animal someone is trying very hard to remove."
"I have enough to keep you uncomfortable until someone—"
"With more authority than both of us arrives." Ivers stepped forward. Bell
did not move, but he looked at Elara, not
Rusk, not Ward, not Saye, Elara. "This is bigger than you understand," Bell said. Elara's voice stayed calm. It always was. Bishop crashed at 4:12 p.m. One moment he was lying on the blanket, sedated but responsive. The next his rear legs stiffened, his breathing sharpened, and his head came up with a sound that made Ward move before he thought. Elara was already there. "Do not touch his back," she said. Ward froze. Bishop's body trembled. His eyes were wide but unfocused. Pain had cut through the medication like wire through cloth. Priya appeared at the doorway. "What do you need?"
"Dr. O'Kane, now, and call neurology." "Tell them lumbosacral compression with acute neurosigns," Priya ran. Saye stepped in automatically.
Then stopped because no one looked to him. That was the final humiliation. Elara checked Bishop's reflexes. Poor placement, muscle response. The left rear was worse, much worse. The nerve compression was not just chronic. Something had shifted. Inflammation, movement, strain from the morning.
"Maybe all of it." Ward's voice was low. "Is he paralyzed?"
"Not yet, not yet." She looked at him. "I don't lie to handlers." That seemed to steady him more than comfort. Dr. Annika O'Kane, the only surgeon in the building Elara trusted completely, arrived in under 2 minutes. She was small, sharp-eyed, and had once told Saye in a staff meeting that his leadership style created preventable errors. He had hated her ever since. O'Kane looked at Bishop, then the films, then Elara. "Referral center." "Too slow," Elara said. "MRI?" "Already called."
"Earliest slot is tomorrow," Bishop cried out. Ward flinched as if struck. O'Kane looked again at the dog's legs. "Steroids and transfer to—"
"Surgical specialty now," she said. Elara shook her head once. He may not tolerate transport without...
Stabilization. O'Kane's eyes narrowed. You thinking decompression?
I'm thinking if we wait for the perfect pathway, he loses function before sunset, Saye found his voice. You are not performing experimental surgery in this hospital. O'Kane turned. No one asked you. Saye's face went red. Elara said, We need a neurologic surgeon. Rusk, who had been standing in the doorway, said, One is inbound. Everyone looked at her. I made the call when I saw the first images, Rusk said. Dr. Celia Rowan, military veterinary neurosurgery, retired. She is 40 minutes out. Elara's expression shifted for the first time. Rusk noticed. You know her? Elara said. She trained me. Ward looked between them. You are not just a veterinary nurse. Elara kept her hand on Bishop's neck. No, she said quietly. But today that is the only job that matters. Dr. Celia Rowan arrived in a dark green coat with rain on her shoulders and a military duffel in one hand. She was 63, silver-haired, and walked like age had negotiated with her and lost. She entered treatment bay 1, looked at Bishop, looked at the films, and then looked at Elara for 2 seconds. Neither spoke. Then Rowan said, Specialist Venn. Ward heard it. So did Say. So did...
Everyone else in the room. Elara's jaw tightened almost.
Imperceptibly, Dr. Rowan. You
always did find the ones everyone else missed. I didn't find him.
He came through the door. Rowan looked at Bishop. They usually do. She examined him with quiet efficiency. No wasted movement. No dramatic expression. Bishop tolerated her because Elara stayed beside him. After 6 minutes, Rowan stood. He needs surgical decompression. Tonight. Ward closed his eyes. Can you do it?
Yes, at this hospital?
Saye demanded. Rowan looked at him as if noticing furniture. With your operating room and my hands, yes. Saye said, This facility is not approved for... Rowan interrupted. This facility is approved for emergency surgery. The patient is unstable. The standard of care is intervention. Say looked toward Rusk. Then Bell, then Graves, realizing too late that none of his old anchors held. Bell had been moved into the consultation room with Captain Ivers.
Outside the door, Graves was making calls in a
corner. Rusk was now speaking to someone from the U.S. Attorney's office. The story had outgrown Saye. He looked smaller because of its surgery. Prep began at 5:03 p.m. Elara shaved and cleaned the surgical site herself. Ward signed the consent form with a shaking hand.
Rowan reviewed the risks in direct language. He may recover function.
He may not. He may walk with pain. He may need months of rehabilitation. But without surgery, the window narrows fast. Ward nodded. He saved my life twice, he said. Do what he needs. Bishop was wheeled toward surgery at 5:31 at the OR door. He lifted his head toward Elara. She placed her hand on his
forehead. I'm here, she said. Rowan looked at her. You are scrubbed in. Saye stepped
forward. No, absolutely not. Rowan turned. Do you want to explain to the federal agents why you removed the one person this dog trusts from induction? Saye did not answer. Elara scrubbed in. The surgery lasted 3 hours and 18 minutes. Outside, the investigation expanded. Mercer, the Northline Records liaison, was found at a private airfield 40 miles south with a bag containing 2 laptops, 3 encrypted drives and a cash envelope. One of the drives contained partial retirement files for 17 military working dogs. 7 had been marked for behavioral disposal. 4 had been transferred to private security companies. 3 had died within a year. Bishop's file was there, not under his name, under a project code. Ward 9. Ward saw it on Rusk's tablet and went very still. They used my name? Rusk said nothing. Elara was still in surgery. Ward read the line again. Disposition recommendation, behavioral instability, handler attachment interfering with secondary placement. He did not understand the words at first. Then he did. He was supposed to be sold. Rusk's voice was careful. Transferred. Ward looked up. Don't do that. She accepted the correction. Yes, she said. Sold. The private security company listed in Bishop's transfer pathway was called Marrowgate Solutions. It had contracts overseas, a domestic training facility, and 3 executives who had once served under Colonel Bell. Bishop had been too handler-bonded to be useful, so they had cleared him as unstable, left him in pain and waited for the failure. That would justify removing him. Ward sat down.
Hard in the hallway chair, he giggled.
Love me too much to be profitable, he said. No one spoke. There was nothing useful to say. Inside the OR, Elara watched Rowan work with the precision of a woman who had spent decades deciding which damage could be repaired and which could only be honored. The compression was worse than the films showed. Scar tissue, inflammation, bone fragments near the nerve root. Old injury, untreated and adapted around until the body could no longer hide the cost. Rowan did not curse. That was how Elara knew she was angry. Retirement clearance? Rowan asked. Yes. Name? North Line. Rowan's hands did not slow. Of course, Elara managed suction. For 3 hours, the outside world became smaller than the surgical field. That was the mercy of work. The body in front of you, the numbers, the breathing, the blood pressure. The next necessary thing, at 8:49 p.m., Bishop made it through, not fixed.
Not magically healed,
but alive, stable, nerve decompressed. Prognosis guarded but possible. Ward was standing when Elara came out. She removed her cap, slowly. He's alive, she said. Ward covered his face with both hands. For the first time all day, he broke, not loudly, just enough. Elara waited. After a moment, he looked up. Will he walk? We'll know more in 48 hours. But he has a chance. Ward nodded once, as if accepting a mission. Then we take the chance. By 10 p.m., the clinic was full of people who had no reason to be in a veterinary hospital unless something very serious had happened. A federal prosecutor arrived from Seattle. 2 more DoD investigators came with sealed evidence bags. A representative from the state veterinary board arrived looking nervous and underdressed. Someone from the military legal office took over the consultation room. Dr. Sai sat alone in the staff break room. No one had told him to go there. He had simply run out of rooms where he mattered. Priya found Elara in recovery, sitting beside Bishop's cage with one hand through the bars. I gave my statement, Priya said. Elara looked up. You didn't have to. Yes, Priya said. I did. She held a paper cup of coffee in both hands. I told them about the note.
About the delivery man.
About Say asking me last month to backdate a vaccine record for that board member's dog. Elara studied her. Priya looked scared, but not uncertain. That might cost you, Elara said. Priya nodded. I know. Then why? Priya looked at Bishop. Because I watched you walk toward him when everyone else ran.
And then I realized you've probably been walking
toward things for a long time while the rest of us called it none of our business. Elara did not respond. Priya set the coffee beside her. It's bad, she warned. Hospital coffee bad, thank you. Priya left. Elara drank it anyway. At 11:12 p.m., Russ came into recovery with a tablet. Bell is talking. Elara looked at her. That was fast. Men who believe they are untouchable often panic when the
first wall actually moves. What did he give you?
Not enough. But something. Rusk handed her the tablet. A flowchart filled the screen. Northline Defense Veterinary Services.
Marrowgate Solutions.
A non-profit called the Canine Readiness Foundation. 2 military oversight offices. 3 private veterinary evaluators. Names, dates, transfer pathways. Elara saw familiar patterns before. She saw familiar names, then she saw the one that stopped. Her Dr. Nolan Pierce, the veterinarian who had supposedly signed Bishop's clearance, the
one who had died 3 weeks ago. He didn't sign it.
Elara said. Rusk's eyes sharpened. How do you know? Elara zoomed in on the signature block. Nolan used a double initial on controlled documents, always. NPP. It annoyed everyone because it didn't match the template. He refused to stop. This only has N. Pierce. Rusk leaned closer. You knew him? Yes. Was he part of your original complaint? Elara nodded once. He was my corroborating witness. Rusk absorbed that. Bell said Pierce became unstable. Claimed he had guilt over administrative mistakes. No, Elara said. She looked toward Bishop, sleeping under medication, chest rising and falling. Nolan was scared. But he was not unstable. Rusk's voice dropped. If we prove his signature was forged, his death reopens. Elara handed back the tablet. Then reopen it. At midnight, Sayi tried one last time to save himself. He asked for a formal statement on camera. He stood in the lobby with his scrub top changed, hair combed, voice controlled. A state board representative recorded. Rusk watched from the side. Sayi said he had acted at all times in the interest of safety. He said the clinic had been placed under extraordinary pressure. He said Elara had a history that was not disclosed during hiring. He said Dr. Rowan had performed surgery in an environment that raised questions. He said Bishop's case had become politicized. Elara stood at the edge of the hallway and listened. When Say finished, the state board representative asked one question. Why did your credentials appear on the forged incident note? Saye said, I cannot account for unauthorized
access. Rusk played the hallway.
Footage. Mercer entered the administrative corridor at 10:59, then a second clip, Dr. Saye, leaving the radiology room at 10:57, handing something to Mercer near the side hallway before returning. A key card. The room went silent. Saye stared at the screen. Elara did not move. The state representative looked at him. Doctor? Saye's mouth opened once. No sound came. Rusk said, we have Mercer in custody. He has already stated you provided access in exchange for Northline's legal protection. Saya turned toward Elara then. Not Bell, not Graves.
Not the agents, Elara. You don't understand what they do to people, he said. His voice was not arrogant now, it was thin. They said you were dangerous.
They said if I didn't cooperate, they would shut the hospital down. They said I would lose everything. Elara looked at him for a long moment. Then she said, so you helped them take the dog? Say flinched. That was the simplest version, the only one that mattered. At 1:40 a.m., Colonel Bell was formally taken into federal custody. He did not fight. He did not shout. He walked out of Harbour Line through the same lobby Bishop had torn through that morning. His uniform was still clean. His face was still controlled. But his hands were cuffed in front of him, covered by a folded coat for appearance.
As if dignity could be preserved by fabric. Ward stood near reception and watched. Bell looked at him once. Ward did not look away. Then Bell looked at Elara. You think this ends with me?
He said. Rusk stepped closer.
Colonel, Elara answered anyway. No, she said.
I think it starts with you. Bell was escorted out. The glass doors closed behind him. For the first time since morning, Harbour Line was quiet. Not peaceful. Too much had happened for peace, but quiet. The kind that comes after a storm when everyone is still checking whether the roof survived. At 2:30 a.m., Bishop woke. Elara was sitting beside the recovery cage, back against the wall, knees drawn up, coffee cold beside her. Ward had fallen asleep in a chair across the room, his head tilted back,
exhaustion finally stronger than guilt. Bishop shifted. Elara sat forward. His eyes opened. For a moment, the dog did not know where he was.
His body tensed. His breathing changed. Then he saw her. Elara placed her hand against the cage door. Easy. Bishop blinked slowly. His nose touched her fingers through the bars. Then, very carefully, his left rear paw moved. Not much. An inch. Maybe less. But it moved. Elara's throat tightened. She did not smile. Not fully. The moment was too fragile for that. Ward woke because handlers wake when their dogs breathe differently. What is it? Elara did not look away from Bishop. His foot moved. Ward stood too fast and grabbed the chair to steady.
Himself? Say that again. His foot moved. Ward
came to the cage and dropped to his knees. Bishop's eyes shifted to him. For one terrifying second, Ward looked afraid to reach. Elara saw it. He knows you, she said. Wardy swallowed. Then he placed 2 fingers against the bars. Yush
stared at him. The room held still. Then the dog pushed his nose against
Ward's hand. Ward closed his eyes. I'm sorry, he whispered. Bishop breathed against his fingers. Elara looked away because some moments belonged to the living and the almost lost, not to witnesses. By morning, the first news vans had arrived. No one at Harbour Line had called them. That did not matter. Stories like this found oxygen. A military dog.
A federal investigation.
A clinic under preservation order. A colonel taken away before dawn. By 7 a.m., the parking lot had 2 black SUVs, a local news van, and 3 clients who had appointments and no idea whether the hospital was open. Priya taped a handwritten sign to the door. Emergency. Cases only today. Please call before entering. Then, she added underneath, yes, the dog is alive. Elara saw it and almost smiled. Almost. Dr. Rowan left at 7:30 after checking Bishop's reflexes and giving strict instructions on pain control, assisted standing and neurological monitoring. She found Elara in the hallway. You did good work, Elara said. So did you. Rowan studied her. You could come back. Elara knew what she meant. Not to Harbour Line. Not to emergency practice, back to the world of working dogs, military medicine, impossible cases, and files that never stayed closed. No, Elara said. Rowan nodded slowly. Not yet. Then. Elara did not correct her. Agent Rusk came next. We're moving the case to a full task force, she said. Northline's archive deletion failed after 22 minutes. We preserved enough to establish the transfer scheme. Bell's financial records are being subpoenaed. Mercer is cooperating. Saye will likely lose his license before this is done. And Bishop? He stays with Ward, federal protection order attached. No Northline contact without court approval. Elara nodded. That mattered more than the rest. Rusk hesitated. You'll need to give a recorded statement.
Maybe more than one.
Your old complaint becomes central now. I know. Your name will come out. Elara looked through the treatment window at Bishop sleeping, Ward sitting beside him like a guard who had finally been assigned the correct post. It already has. Rusk's voice softened slightly. You were right 4 years ago. Elara did not answer. Immediately outside, rain tapped against the windows. Greyhaven had returned to its usual weather, steady and cold, washing blood from the pavement 1 drop at a time. Being right didn't save them, she said. No, Rusk said, but it may save the ones still alive. That was the first thing anyone had said about the past that did not feel useless. At 9:15 a.m., The staff gathered without being asked, not all of them. Some were too busy, some were too embarrassed. Some did not know what to say, which was probably better than saying the wrong thing. Priya stood near the pharmacy door. The receptionist stood behind the counter. Dr. O'Kane leaned against the treatment table with folded arms.
Even two interns who had watched
Sayi humiliate Elara that morning stood quietly near the kennels. Elara came out of recovery and stopped. No one clapped. Thank God. She would have turned around and walked back in. Instead, the receptionist said, "I'm sorry I didn't say anything when he grabbed your wrist." Elara looked at her. "You were scared?" "Yes," the receptionist said.
"And I still should have said something," Priya nodded.
"Me too," one of the interns said. "I should have questioned the note." Dr. O'Kane looked at all of them. "Good," she said. "Remember this feeling."
It is what prevents the next one. That was why Elara liked her. No speeches. No sentiment wasted. Just the lesson. At noon, Bishop stood with assistants. It took two people, a sling, and Ward holding his breath like the wrong inhale might break the outcome.
His legs trembled. His left rear foot dragged at first. Then he placed it, not perfectly, not strongly, but placed. Ward made a sound he did not mean to make. Elara kept her hand near Bishop's
shoulder. Easy. The dog shifted weight 1
second to 2-3. Then he sat back down hard.
Exhausted, Ward laughed once through tears he did not bother hiding. He stood.
Elara said. Bishop leaned into Ward's leg. The handler placed both hands on the dog's head and lowered his forehead until it touched Bishop's. This time, Bishop did not flinch. That was the victory, not the investigation, not Bell in custody, not Sayi losing his borrowed authority. This, a dog in less pain, a handler forgiven by the only witness who mattered. 3 weeks later, Harborline looked almost normal again. The broken brochure stand had been replaced. The blood had been cleaned from the entrance. Dr. Say's name had been removed from the staff board. A temporary medical director had taken over, and Idul spent her first day asking nurses which equipment needed replacement. The list was long. Elara handed it over without apology. Northline. Defense Veterinary Services was under federal investigation. Marrowgate Solutions had lost 2 contracts. Colonel Bell had been indicted on obstruction, fraud, falsification of federal records, and conspiracy connected to the illegal transfer of retired working dogs, Dr. Nolan. Pierce's death had been reopened. 6 dogs had been located. 3 were in treatment. 2 were with handlers. 1 had not survived long enough for the truth to matter to him, but his file now mattered to everyone else. That was something. Not enough, but something. Bishop came back to Harborline for his first formal rehabilitation session on a rainy Thursday afternoon. He walked in slowly, wearing a support harness, Ward beside him.
One hand on the strap, but not pulling.
Bishop's left rear leg still lagged. It might always lag. His movement was careful. His pain was managed. His eyes were clear. The lobby went quiet again when he entered. This time, no one ran. Priya smiled from behind the counter. The receptionist whispered, "Hi, Bishop." The dog ignored them all until he saw Elara. Then his ears came forward. Elara crouched. Bishop crossed the lobby in 6 uneven steps and pressed his head into her chest. Ward stopped behind him. He wanted to come in. Himself, he said. Elara set one hand along Bishop's neck. He earned it. Ward looked at her for a long
moment. "I never thanked you properly. You signed the consent."
"You stayed."
"You listened. That's proper." "No," Ward said.
"It isn't." She looked up. He struggled for the words, and for once she let him. "I thought he was breaking," Ward said.
"I thought I was losing him to something neither of us could fight."
"You saw him, not the behavior." Not the file, him. Elara looked at Bishop. The dog's eyes were half closed. He made it. Difficult not to. Ward smiled faintly, then his face
sobered. They found another one yesterday. Elara's hand stopped for half a second. Ward noticed. Female shepherd.
retired army, cleared by Northline.
Same pain markers.
Rusk called me because they think the handler may talk if I do first. Elara nodded. Will you? Yes. Good. Ward looked at her carefully. She asked if you would consult? Elara did not answer right away. Bishop shifted against her, trusting her weight, trusting the room, trusting the pain would not swallow him whole again. Elara had wanted a quiet life. She still did. But quiet, she had learned, was not the same as silence. She stood. Tell Agent Rusk to send the file, she said. Ward nodded once. Bishop looked up at her as if he understood more than he should. Outside, the rain continued against the windows. Inside, the clinic kept working. A phone rang. A printer hummed. Someone laughed softly in the back. The ordinary sounds of a place that had almost been used to hide something ugly, and had instead become the place where it started to come apart. Elara clipped Bishop's rehab lead to his harness. Ready? Ward asked. Elara looked down at the dog. Bishop placed his left rear paw carefully on the floor, then the right, then the left again. Slow, imperfect, alive, yes, Elara said. And together they walked forward,